I'm Robert J. Sawyer, and this is Vintage SF.
Welcome to DINOvember. I'm Richard Rempel, and today I want to talk about what I think is my best dino read of the month. That's right, it's Dynamite. Well, it is Far-Seer by Robert J. Sawyer. This is a novel that he conceived of in his teenage years, and for a decade had been working with it off and on. Publishers were having trouble committing to publishing it because it's a story with no human beings. It was also conceived of as a standalone or singleton novel, but aspects of it, the publisher that eventually published it, aspects of it became part of a bigger series. So it's the first of something called the Quintaglio Ascension. There's Far-Seer, there's Fossil Hunter, and there's Foreigner. These came out year by year by year in 1992, 1993, and 1994. Now, in a previous video, I was talking about Sawyer's end of era, and I had surmised that it had been written far before this one here. I was wrong. It wasn't. This one's been in the works for most of the 1980s for Robert J. Sawyer. I think, though, that extra time and having to rewrite it numerous times, and the last rewrite to make it into the trilogy, is what has created a better novel and a better series. Sometimes strong editing really helps. Now, one of the first things I would like to do is warn you not to read the blurb on the back of the cover, at least of this edition I have here. It gives away some things that you don't find out until you get into the second and third novel. What you need to know here is we are on a planet in another solar system, on another star. The night sky is not our night sky. The other thing, there are intelligent dinosaurs. They seem to be T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex intelligence. It's a carnivorous society. And, of course, although there's no humans in here, there is the metaphor or analogy of human society. It looks more like a Middle Ages society, and our protagonist really seems to be the Copernicus of his time. This is a novel about discovering your place within a society and within the universe. A coming-of-age story, but also a story of a struggle between science and superstition. What about the plot? Well, let's talk about it in brief and with no major spoilers. Ascension is our protagonist. He is a young T-Rex who has been called to the court of astrology in their kingdom. Now, the name astrology is in context with astronomy. They really are the same thing here, examining the night sky, except that astrologers read something into it, that there's a god that is guiding them, or that is a god of wrath in the sky. A very famous seafaring captain named Far-Seer has created something, or had created for him, something called a Far-Seer. That is, a telescope. The chief astrologer rejects this gift from Far-Seer, but Ascension is fascinated. He finds a way to eventually go on a voyage with Far-Seer to see the face of God, something that's in their night sky that they cannot see from their landmass which they are situated on. Being a society of carnivorous people, let's say, there are rites of passages including hunts, dangerous hunts, of even larger creatures than the T-Rexes themselves. Ascension has to prove himself before he can even go on this voyage. He becomes somewhat of a legend both for his hunting skills and for his intelligence. Some have complained that this is a little bit more of fantasy than science fiction, but I really believe it's very much science fiction. We have a lot here about where you are in the universe, astronomy, that comes into discovery and understanding for the society. And we also have a very interesting extrapolation of what a society of dinosaurs could look like. one based in carnivorous rituals. I found this novel fascinating and very satisfying. I actually think it stands well by itself, a singleton, even though it has elements that were passed on into the other two novels. I don't think those elements are necessary, and that's one of the reasons I'm telling you not to read the back blurb, because I don't think you need to know about it, or you could just read it after reading the novel. Now, just a word about Robert J. Sawyer himself. He has the oldest website of any science fiction writer from 1995, and it has over 1 million words of articles in it. You can find it at sfwriter.com. Here you can find out all sorts of information about Robert J. Sawyer himself, his novels, and his appearances. One of the interesting things for Robert J. Sawyer is he's a really well-known author, has won the Hugo and Nebula Awards, but his books have slowly gone out of print. But the copyrights have been coming into his possession, and so he's been republishing them. And these are more that print-and-demand type of book. But I'm very happy to see that his work is continuing to be published. Back to Far-Seer. I've read the Quintaglio Ascension way back in the 1990s, borrowed them from my library. Far-Seer stood up really well in a rereading. I was amazed at the world building, and I loved the science, as I mentioned, of the astronomy and the society that was created from dinosaurs. If you do want to read further, you'll find out a little bit more about the history of this world. You may have some questions just from this review that will be answered in those novels. I think this is one of Robert J. Sawyer's best works. I give it 9 out of 10. Highly recommended. So have you read Far-Seer or the Quintaglio Ascension? Are there other works of Robert J. Sawyer you would recommend? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, wait, Robert J. Sawyer can do this better than I can.
Until next time, keep reading.